Okay, so we've worked a couple of problems. Now let's delve into this just a little bit deeper. If a square root is the opposite of a square, then let's think about this. What would we have to square to get a -4? In other words, we want to try and find out what is the square root of -4. Because if squaring and square rooting are opposites of each other, in order for us to find the square root of -4, we could think about it backwards. What would we have to square to get -4? Well, when we're dealing with just the 4, the square root of 4 would be 2. If I were to square a 2, I don't get a -4, do we? So maybe we need to use the -2. If we square a -2, do we get a -4? No, we don't. And in fact, if you think about the definition of squaring, squaring means that you're going to multiply whatever it is to itself. Well, if we have a positive number and we multiply it to itself, our answer will be positive. If we have a negative number and we multiply it to itself, the answer will still be positive. This is not possible. At least for what we know now. We'll learn more later. But especially now that we're just talking about real numbers, it's not possible in the real number system. Maybe I should say that. That would be a lot more accurate. So, we have different possibilities when we talk about square roots. Square roots can either be rational numbers, irrational numbers, or not a real number. Okay, what does rational mean? Think about our definitions of those words. Rational numbers are anything that can be written as a fraction. So for instance, if we had the square root of 4, that would be a rational number because the answer is 2, and it can be written as a fraction as 2/1. So that's an example of a rational square root. Now remember, an irrational number is the opposite of that. An irrational number cannot be written as a fraction. Cannot be written as fraction. So for instance, an irrational number would be any time that we take a square root and it's not a perfect square underneath here. This square root of 12, it's not a perfect square, so it ends up being a decimal. Actually, it would be 3 point something with a bunch of decimal places after it. So because this cannot be, we can't take the square root of it, it's not a nice whole number that we could put over 1 and turn into a fraction, then it's considered an irrational number. Then lastly, we have our ones that are not real numbers. And that is basically square roots of negative numbers. Because just as we saw in our example a while ago, the square root of -4 is not something that we can do in our number system. Let's look at a couple of examples here of these. Tell if the root of the square root is rational, irrational, or not a real number. If it's rational, find the value. If it's irrational, write the approximate value rounded to 2 decimal places. And then if it's not real, we need to say that also. So we're just going to look at these really quickly. When we take the square root of a negative number, that is not real automatically. This one here, the square root of 64, well, that's a perfect square, so that would be 8. That is a rational square root because we could write 8 as 8/1. The square root of 24 is irrational. If we were to do the square root of 24